Welcome to The Fair Fight, Personal Injury Law with Ann Thoeny.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. I'm Matt Sky. Today we're joined by Ann Thoeny, a Seattle-based injury lawyer with over 30 years of experience and a relentless focus helping the vulnerable and injured seek fair compensation against large companies. Ann, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I've read that there's a growing number of car accident cases in Washington state. Can you maybe detail that situation for us a little bit? We're looking at, a 10% increase in 2023 from 2022. I'm not sure what the current number is in 2024, but maybe key us into that situation.
Yeah, actually, I saw that, and I was surprised, but not surprised. But I'll tell you what surprised me. There was an article in the Seattle Times the other day about Seattle. They reconfigured how they do these analysis of who are safe drivers, and they came up with Seattle as being one of the safest cities, like the third or fifth safest, which now that surprised me because most people here think the drivers are terrible. So I don't know. We've had an increase of people coming to the area, obviously, for many years. I mean, it slowed down after the pandemic, but I'm thinking that things are kind of ramping up again. People, went from very quiet streets as it did anywhere, and things are ramping up. More people are moving here still, and I would imagine it's just volume.
What are the common types of injuries you see in these cases? Obviously, they can be pretty serious, I assume.
The common type, as everybody knows, the common, more minor type is, can be minor, can be big too. But the common type is what people will call whiplash. And what whiplash is really a damage to your soft tissue. It's everything not a broken bone. You've hurt your ligaments, your muscles, and your spine's moved some usually. So that's the most common, but it's not as small as some people sort of diminish it, I think, with the word whiplash. What we're talking about is often they'll do x-rays and your spine straightens out, and that can cause a lot of cramping and pain and just constant irritation throughout the day that you can't get rid of. If a bone is broken, you fix it, you go through some repair. It is huge to have surgery. Very huge, but soft tissue can actually last a long time, if not your lifetime. I mean, I have a skiing injury, my fault, as a kid, 14 years old, and I still have that problem. So the most common is soft tissue damage in car accidents, yeah.
And with that soft tissue damage, does it cascade into even more injuries from that one injury?
Well, yeah, it can. I mean, it's sort of all related. You'll have an area that's hurt, and it's because your spine has been moved and your muscles have tightened and gripped themselves. And, sometimes that gripping is a lifelong issue. You've got some chronic muscle damage. So I would say it's all, the damage was done right away, and it doesn't really cascade necessarily, but it can remain if it's bad enough. As I think I was stating earlier, what can happen too is you'll find out that you were more injured than you thought you were. You might have injured something to the degree you might need surgery. So sometimes you can't discover everything that happens. You're in shock, a certain part of your body hurts, you're neglecting another part of your body, and a week or so, month later, you're like, wait a minute, this too is happening.
So when someone is injured in a car wreck, what are the first steps they should take?
Ideally, call the police so that they have a recording, a documentation of what has happened and who has done what and where the cars are. Definitely call the police. The second thing they should do is take photographs of your car, of their car. If you have the wherewithal, if you're not too injured, if you're taken away in an accident, then you should also be taking photographs of everything that you can. Make sure you get the insurance and license plate. Again, if the police are there, they'll get that information. But if not, and you don't do that, then you should definitely just document. If there's a witness, make sure you get their name, their phone number, their email. Don't let people run off. So it's really important just to document everything, where your car landed, if you had to move it, make sure you understand all of that because it's very crucial.
We sometimes hear about seeking immediate medical attention after an injury. How could that jeopardize a case if someone doesn't do that?
Oh, that can be a big problem. Now, waiting a few days is common. People go home and they think, I'm going to be fine. And then, as often happens, your muscles and your body starts to tighten up and you're starting to notice some injuries. And then it takes maybe a week to get into your doctor, or 2 weeks. That could be explained. But when somebody waits, a month or 2 months, or, that is a definite problem, a red flag right away, because the insurance company will think you weren't injured enough to even seek medical attention. How injured could you be? I mean, people have busy lives. They've got their children maybe, and they think, oh, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with it. Suddenly they deal with it. But it is a very, very big uphill battle for me against the insurance companies. So it can really tank a case. So you need to see a doctor pretty soon.
And how thorough should those appointments be? Say they're just only having minor pains to start with that, start increasing gradually over time.
Yeah, I know. I definitely have people come in and they've gone to an urgent care and, they're making sure, you're not dead and bleeding and send you on your way. I always encourage people to go again, see a primary care, establish that relationship, make sure, x-rays are taken. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I wonder why they didn't do an MRI. Just push your doctor. If you're still injured, go in there and be vocal about how you feel and what's going on. So yeah, I'm always pushing on that because sometimes I had a client the other day, they'd barely done an examination and I'm going, go in there, like, should I see somebody else? Sure. If that was just an urgent care, definitely go see somebody else, get a better exam. And they did. They got some better service. Yeah.
Does it tend to be helpful to get those second opinions in general?
Yes, it can be helpful. It depends. I mean, I wouldn't suggest it unless it seemed like, the client is telling me this person isn't helping me, or I can look at the record and see, they really haven't done that much. So it's certainly helpful in a case where, a particular doctor just isn't paying attention.
Now, how important is it for your clients to adhere to doctors' orders, follow-up appointments, et cetera, once they begin treatment?
Yes, another issue in these cases that the insurance company will use against you if they give you a set amount of, you should keep going to PT, and then they stop early. They'll say, well, they can't be that hurt. It's not that important to them. Or they just stop showing up for appointments. I've had people with life has gotten in the way, and I go, okay, we can explain that, but you need to go back in, you need to do this. So it is harmful. It is another uphill battle that I have to work with the insurance company. So it is a lecture I give my clients when they first come in. Do not fail to go to the doctor, do not do that. Follow through with everything they say. If you're having issues with them, call me up. Let's talk through it.
You sort of said something interesting, that life gets in the way. So if someone, say, does miss a few appointments for, let's just say, a couple of days or maybe even a couple of weeks, are they able to get back on course?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, people take vacations, kids are out of school, they're doing this or that. That I say, I always tell people anybody can explain that. I mean, imagine how this looks at the very end and you're talking to 12 people, 12 jurors. Most people are going to understand that. So you have to think about it. I think about it that way. If I got to that point, I'm not just worried about the adjuster. I'm like, how are people going to look at this? It's a story and they're going to look at it and go, that's normal. We don't care. If it's months and months and months and months, and all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, something you never mentioned before is an injury. That's almost impossible to connect. So, yeah.
So at what point would you say it becomes a true gap in care?
Yeah, when we're talking months, 2-3 months, that's a big problem. Big problem, yeah.
So then we have the other aspect. We have the health component. How does someone pay for their vehicle damage after an auto wreck, and who pays?
Well, it depends on the insurance you have. If you have insurance that covers your own car in the accident, you can go, and then the other person has the ideal. Everybody has insurance. Then you can either go through the other insurance company or your own. In that situation, I usually encourage people to use their own insurance company because your own insurance company has a certain fiduciary duty to you to treat you better. So that's what I ask them to do. If you don't have insurance to cover, you've got an old beater car and you didn't bother, you only have liability, you're not going to get insurance to cover the damage to your car, and then you have to go through the other party. If nobody has insurance, well, then it's really not going to be worthwhile to bring a case, because unless Bill Gates hits you with his vehicle, then you know that there's some money there, and maybe you can get him to pay for your vehicle because it was his fault. But yeah. So those are kind of the three options out there. Depends.
Just curious, do you see cases like that where no one has insurance and there's still a way to handle it?
I can only think of a smallish sort of case I handled once. It wasn't a car accident case. It was somebody assaulted on a bike, and it was an unusual situation. And the person did have some money, and we did settle it for, it wasn't a big case, but it was just kind of the principle of the thing. But generally, in a car accident where people have more injuries, people who don't have insurance generally don't have money. So it really isn't sort of worth the time and effort to do that, typically.
Now, on the insurance side, what are some of the tactics used to limit or deny auto wreck claims in Washington state?
Well, they just deny. No, the way they limit it is, like I think I might have said earlier, is one thing they want to do is talk to you right away and try to get you to sort of, admit you're either not that hurt or you had some sort of participation in why it happened. And then the other thing that they might do is, and I've seen this quite a few times, they're trying to send you a check right away, a low check for your damages, so that you sign the release and you can never bring a lawsuit against them again. And that's really sort of disgusting, but I have seen it. I have seen them do that quite a few times.
If people sign that early check, is there any way to reverse that, or is that kind of done in...
No, not if they've signed a release. No, not typically, no.
So how does your experience negotiating with insurance companies help your clients? You have a unique background because you've seen many different sides of this whole legal apparatus, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I think my having been an insurance company lawyer is beneficial because I do understand their side of things and how they look at it. And so I could be either dealing with an adjuster or, eventually if it's filed a lawsuit, then it's litigated and there's an attorney on the other side. But I can, use my insight to how they think and to negotiate with them because I understand it, pretty well. Like I've heard some of their personal injury attorneys sometimes when I've been talking to them about a case. I remember I was working for this lawyer once and he thought there was a particular reason they were doing this on their side. And I was like, no, that's not what's happening. This is what's happening. I just sort of understand how they operate. So I think that's a big advantage for me.
In your experience, how often do cases end up going to trial? How often are they settled? What's that process like?
I would say, we have other processes called mediations and arbitrations. Every case filed for trial, once you file a lawsuit, you have to go through a mediation. It's mandatory in Washington, in our field here. And so most cases settle. I mean, probably, I don't know, I'm going to say 99%.
Wow,
because of the way it's set up. It may not be that high. Actually, I remember when I was a public defender, that, of course, you go to trial more often in criminal than anything. Obvious reasons, you're dealing with freedom. I can't remember. It might have been 95% of cases even settled in that field. So I honestly don't know the statistics, but my experience for me, the majority of my cases are more in the pre-litigation status because I'm not running a big, large practice. So I'll have 3 or 4 in litigation at a time. And most cases settle.
Now, with auto accidents, I imagine you have multi-state accidents that happen at least relatively frequently. Someone's from one jurisdiction and a separate one. How do you coordinate those cases when people are in different states and encounter a wreck?
Well, any accident that happens in Washington has jurisdiction. So we have the jurisdiction. Then it's just a matter of which court or county you file in, but we have jurisdiction. And if somebody's from out of state, then it won't matter pre-litigation, but once you file the lawsuit, you just have to properly serve people and get them served. Personal service. And personal service, you just hire somebody in another state. I've had to chase somebody down in New York with investigators and, you just get it done. You get it done. You have to find them and you have to get them personally served no matter where they are. But yeah, we just have jurisdiction and they have to, appear or answer. Yeah. And insurance companies have lawyers that are hired for, you don't need to go out and hire a lawyer if you're sued. You just show it to your insurance company and they hire lawyers locally to handle it. That's how that works.
Yeah, a word stuck out to me. You said investigate. Can you speak a little bit to the investigative process of the work you do?
Well, I guess the case I was talking about, that particular case, we were close to statute. So there's a 3-year statute of limitations for torts in this state. And we'd been filing, but the defendant, we just didn't have a lot on him. So I had to hire investigators. That was an investigation to find somebody, to just find the defendant. I spend time sometimes on Facebook, and social media can be very helpful, but I had to hire an investigator and somebody in North Carolina because there were just different places this person could be. But that's the investigation I was talking about in that particular case. But I have to hire investigators sometimes to talk to witnesses, more often not in car accident cases, like in slip and fall cases, or, we have a case now, injury in an elevator, and we've had to hire investigators to try to find witnesses, to try to talk to people. It just depends on the situation. Yeah.
In terms of that investigative component, would you say the car accident cases are more investigative or less than some of the slip and falls and the others you noted?
I would say they're less in the sense that usually the police come and handle it. I would say they're less investigative. Usually if I've got a slip and fall, I've got experts, safety experts. Yes, because there's nobody there, documenting things when you have a slip and fall. So you have to hire sometimes have to hire an investigator to go there and check the scene out and take photos and do that. So, I'll do it too, but yeah, more investigative because it's not common.
So for people out there listening or watching as we wrap up, what would be one major takeaway you hope they walk away with?
Attorneys are your friends. We want to help you. So if you are injured in a fashion that it was somebody else's fault, or their negligence or carelessness, then you should call an attorney right away. You just should. We can help you, and I really enjoy my work. So I will talk it through with anybody and decide if they need to hire somebody and how that will look for them. Yeah.
That's a great point to wrap up on. Everybody, thanks so much for listening today. To learn more about Ann Thoeny, visit ThoenyLaw.com. Also find her on social media. Ann, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.